Okay, question. Where does the Frierdiker Rebbe write about Amud Yomi? Those that are not familiar, there is a Chabad custom, very unknown, has lately become maybe a bit more popular, to learn every day Amud Gemara. And so the Bach is asking where it's written about. So it's written about in Sefer HaMenhagim, page 21. I couldn't find the Sefer HaMenhagim. It is a famous Hayrah that every Chassid should be learning at least one Masechta Gemara a year. And that Hayrah begins to learn the Amud Gemara a day, and it actually began 9 months before the Daf Yomi began. Daf Yomi began Rosh Hashanah Tov Reish Pei Daled, if I'm not mistaken, and this begins Yutes Kislev Tov Reish Pei Gimel. And in Tov Shin Daled also, there's a number of times that the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about it, not too much, and it obviously didn't really take off. That's why most people are not familiar with it, don't do it. But there has been an organization with a website, with Shiurim, that are lately starting to bring it up again. On the website, it doesn't really have all the sources where it came from, but Al Kol Panim, it's those few dates. There's apparently some letters of the Rebbe about it as well. Question, do your words have an effect if you say something like, he had a heart attack, but it's not true, besides for lying? So here the Bacher is, I assume, is talking about two different things. There is a famous Hayom Yom where there's a story where there were people that were angry at each other, and one person told the other one, I'm going to rip you apart like a fish, which today would say, I would kill you. And the Baal Shem Tov told the Talmidim standing around him to put their hands on their shoulders, and the ones right next to him put their hands on his shoulders, and he put his holy hands on their shoulders, and then they started screaming, because they literally saw how the person that said he's going to tear the other guy like a fish was actually doing that. And the Baal Shem Tov taught his Talmidim that when you say things like that, it actually has an effect. Another point is a famous Sikha, I think it's Chav Gimel or Chav Zayin, Parshas Emor, I forget. And over there the Rebbe talks about Lashon Hara, and the Rebbe says when you talk about somebody, it actually makes it happen. So for example, if you say that a certain person is annoying, you just made him even more annoying. It's how I said a certain person has a temper issue, you just made his temper issue even worse. So talking bad about people actually makes them worse. You tell someone, oh, that person has an issue with foul language, you just might have made his foul language issue even worse. So talking bad about people, the Rebbe famously says, has an actual effect on them. Huh? Yes, that's the famous Sikha where the Rebbe says talking good about people actually builds them up. And even if they don't hear you, that's the big Kiddush. Even if they don't hear, just talking good about people already builds them up. So based on this, the Bacher is asking, what about the Sha'avar? If somebody says that person had a heart attack, saying that someone is having a heart attack or will have a heart attack, so of course that has an effect based on these two Nekudas. But besides the past, is there an issue besides lying? I don't think so. I don't think that even in the Rebbe Sikha, I don't think the Rebbe gives Dibur such a koyach to go l'mafreya, to go retroactively. Bechal, it's a chiddush as it is, that I'm speaking here about someone that's not in the room with me and didn't hear what I said and might never hear what I said, and afal b'chein, it has an effect to extend that chiddush to say that it works backwards, that if I say today that he did something yesterday, meaning in the past, I don't think that will have an effect. Could be that I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. Yes, Ari. Yeah. It's not like it's an automatic thing. It's just like bad is not automatic. If I say about someone that he's a murderer, doesn't turn him into a murderer. That's not going to for sure make it like that. But just like heavy water on a stone, that has an effect. So these things have a slight effect. Maybe more, maybe less, but there's some effect. And for good also, saying good about people has an effect. I mean, to tell someone to his face that he's good, that's for sure has an effect. Someone compliments you, you're such a nice person, that makes you want to be more nice. Then obviously not. We're talking about anything. The point is that Dibur has a very powerful koyach. We think words are nothing. Words have a real power to actually transform people.
Let's say he's such a bad guy.
I'm not sure. I don't know how to analyze everything. You have to learn the Sikha again. I forget. It's Chav Gimel or Chav Zayin, Parshas Emor. Chav Zayin. Chav Zayin. Okay, very good. Okay, there's a question here. What do you do in places where Nates and Tzeis and Chatzos are all the same time? Meaning that there are places on the globe that the sun doesn't set, which is called the midnight sun. You can have for 2-3 months where the sun doesn't set, and the shaila comes about when to daven Shachris, when to daven Ma'ariv, Shabbos, all these kind of questions. This is it's a pretty old shaila, and there are many opinions. There are some opinions say to avoid living in such places because it's so complicated. However, there are those. I saw three opinions. One opinion is that you go by the place where you came from, which that itself is not so clear. Like if you come from Postville, then you go by the Postville's man. Find out in Postville, the Shabbos comes in at 8:30, so that's what you should do when you're in that place as well. Some people say it means the last community that you came from. Apparently, when the Shaila came up the first time, the person that had been traveling there came from Hamburg in Germany. So it became like, okay, you go by Hamburg because that's where he came from. That was the closest, apparently, Jewish community that person had been in before he had arrived at that location. So that's one opinion, you go by that. Then there's, if you're born there, what do you do then? Then you can go by the other opinions. Another opinion besides this, I just had two opinions. Either to try to avoid being there, or to go by the place where you came from. Another opinion is that you count, it's the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai says this, you divide the day, 6 a.m. is Shkia, is morning, is the Neitzachama, 6 p.m. would be considered Shkia, and then 72 minutes later would be Matzah Shabbos, and you work everything, we divide up the 24 hours into 12 hours and 12 hours, and as if Neitzachama is 6 a.m. and Shkia Tzachama is 6 p.m.
What if you're in place all time?
Replace that?
All time.
I can't know what you're saying.
Place that all time,
All time.
Like on North Pole, you go there, it's every time.
They also have a clock. They also go by times. The times that they have will go. You don't know. There's times over there. So I don't know how. I don't know with tefillin. I don't know how that would work. I didn't look that up. There's other places that are always. Most of these places that are always light are also always dark for 2 months. The other time of the year. So this was about when it's always day. This is what I saw. These are the basic opinions. Either not to be there, or to go by the place where you came from, or you just to say by 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that's what you do. So it's a complicated trial. I think there's a couple of more opinions. So obviously, like all these things, you always have to ask your personal Rav. Huh? So that's al derech what I just said, where you came from. Closest city where you came from, not that the city that's there. Well, I think this question comes up the same subject over there also. It's a big sugya. You can spend probably a whole shir just discussing all the ins and outs, but here we're trying to go just the basic Nekudas.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In what direction should one stand if they're in space?
Space is not a question. You just face towards planet Earth. The question is if you're in the North Pole, any direction you go is going to be towards Yerushalayim. That's the question. But that over there, I guess anywhere. I don't understand this question. Can the Chazan be quiet during the Amidah Shemina Esrei? I don't know what that means. The Chazan should not be quiet. Chazan can't be quiet, but Chazaras Hashatz. Yeah. I don't understand. The Chazan has to daven out loud and say everything out loud. What? I don't understand the question. How can the Chazan be quiet? He has to say everything out loud. Yeah, the Chazan, that's the question. The Chazan has to say everything out loud. He shouldn't just say the Baruch Ato Mechaya Mason out loud. He has to say the whole bracha, the whole entire Shemona Esrei. He has to say out loud. Question, if Yeravam ben Nevat did all the Averis, how could it be that there was never a Ben Seder Umeira? So, first of all, I don't know that Yeravam ben Nevat did all the Averis. Says he was a Chayta Umachti. There was somebody else that Rebbe Elazar ben Dordai, it says about him that he did all the Averis. And so the Baruch is asking, what about Ben Seder Umeira? So, first of all, there are opinions that there was a Ben Seder Umeira. But secondly, the Pashas, it doesn't mean he did every single Avera, because certain Averis you can only do if you're a Kohen, or if you're a Levi, or for a Melech. So different Averis apply to different people. So, obviously doesn't mean every single Avera. It means only Averas that were shaykh for him to do. He did every possible Avera. When it says about certain people, when it says about people that they did, it says it about a number of people, it means whatever they were able to do, they did it. It's more of a figure of speech. I don't think it means literally that that's impossible. Yeah. It's not always possible to do a Ben Seder. If a person doesn't have a father, that's it. He can't do Ben Seder to murder. If a person, his father doesn't have money to steal from, then he can't do Ben Seder to murder. So, I don't know if it means that he did it from the moment he was 12 years old. He was Ben Seder to murder. It could be Ben Seder to murder. I mean, 13, whatever the age is. The kid, all the Avedas from when he hit the 18. I think it's more of an expression that he was trying to do as many Avedas as possible.
Right, the person needs to be, where his bar mitzvah was like 2 weeks ago.
No, Bar mitzvah and then 3 months later. That's how it works.
3 months. Very
Yeah.
time period. Period of time.
Question: do you think the 17-year-old bacher who got engaged was right to do that? So there's big news in Lubavitch that a 17-year-old bacher became a chassan a couple of weeks ago. The bacher is asking that I think is the right thing. All those kind of things, the question always is, you have to ask your mashpia. If that bacher asked his mashpia, then he did the right thing. If he didn't ask his mashpia, then it's a different story. And that's my opinion. If I'm not that bacher's mashpia, I don't know that bacher. And would the mashpia be wrong? If he's a chiddush, you'd know. I think there are circumstances that might say yes, that some certain 17-year-olds, maybe it's the right thing for them to get married. Even though it says Ben Shmeina Esrei L'Chuppah, there's an opinion that says Shmeina Esrei means once you enter your 18th year, meaning 17 years and a day or 17 years and a month, that's considered your 18th year, and that's when you're ready to get married. Huh? Yosef didn't get married. I don't know. I don't know the pratim. I remember what Bacher told me when it happened, but I forgot the information. Okay, questions. This is a long read. Is it correct not to ask someone on Mivtzoim the first few times you meet him to put on tefillin, if he is on your route, not street Mivtzoim, in order to first build a connection so that he'd be a lot more comfortable with you to put on tefillin every week, instead of risking asking and making him uncomfortable, and maybe bring up trauma of his old Judaism without first explaining what is real Judaism, which is amazing. Which, similar to this idea, we find that we take breaks, us from Yidden, we take breaks or exercise and the like, in order to help us learn, even though that could be considered Bittul Torah, but the same idea. It's in order to give us a break, so to appreciate what we do afterwards. But on the other hand, we know that we don't make compromises. And Amaisa Hu Ha'ikar, and every mitzvah that we do with someone is very important, and also affects someone the most. So is this a right outlook on Mivtzoim B'chlal? Unless you see clearly Eitzim and a Klal, and you're going to be Mevatel Mitzvah Seseh. I like the question. I think that the answer is that we do right away the mitzvah. Unless you know for sure not to. Meaning, if you're in doubt, then do right away, or ask the person to do the mitzvah tefillin, and don't be concerned about anything negative. Just do your best. There are stories differently. There's a story with Reb Meir Belezinski, who was a chassid, lived in Eretz Yisrael, big masculine chassidus. It's a long story. I forget all the pratim. It begins that he would give a shir chassidus, and then there was this very anti-religious journalist that lived nearby, and one day came into shul and listened to a shir chassidus and started asking a lot of questions. He was an intelligent person. So Rabbi Belezinski told him, let's have a one-on-one shir, chavrusa, maybe it makes more sense. Instead of everybody else in the shir, getting bored while we discuss things. So they start having a shir once a week, and it was on Shabbos in Rabbi Meir Belezinski's house. And Meir started, I think he tried to ask him to try to be religious or not, but one day what happened was, one Shabbos they were learning, and Reb Meir had to leave the room for something, one of his kids, whatever it was. He came back like 10 minutes later, and he smelled cigarette smoke in the room. And at that point, he was very confused. This guy smoking in my house on Shabbos, but on the other hand, I'm learning chassidus with him. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe what he should do. And the Rebbe told him, if I'm not I might be mixing two stories, but I think this is the way the story goes. The Rebbe told him, continue learning, and do not ask him to do any mitzvahs. Don't ask him to do any mitzvahs. So when Reb Meir got such a response, obviously he can follow, then he can continue the shir without pushing this person. And eventually this Yid started becoming more religious. And a long time later, he told Reb Meir, you should know that when I came to Chatchila, it was because he basically was an anti-religious person, and I guess so at a certain point in his life, he said, I'm anti this religion, what does it really have to offer? Let me find out what it's about. But before he got involved, he made a decision, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. I'm not going to become religious, I just want to understand what it's about. Again, I'm not being medayik in the pratim, but it's more or less the way I'm saying it. And he said, when I started learning Hasidus, I started feeling like this is so real. I should adopt a lifestyle of a religious Jew. However, I had made this decision before, and I was strong about it. And I maybe, I don't know if he smoked Badafka because of that, but he said, I knew that, and I told myself, if you're going to make any offer to me to start becoming religious, that's it. I'm going to stop the Chavrusa right away because it would be too much. I wouldn't be able to handle this back and forth. I would just say no. But because you never offered me anything, therefore, I slowly got to it on my own, and here I am. So that's a very unique story that only the Rebbe can do. Everybody else says that they should not rely on such an idea. The Rebbe always says, Chaparain, you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah with someone, do a mitzvah. There are stories, with a Hanukkah story, a Tefillin story, where a Yid came into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him to put on Tefillin with someone. The Rebbe said, fine, in 2 weeks I'll be there. In 2 weeks. Right now, Chaparain, the Tefillin right now. The story in Tzithrol just now, also a similar story. Shliach Eisenbach, as a ganze Meise, this Yid that's on Zoom, and one of the people that he's on Zoom, his name is Muhammad, and they're talking. So the religious Jew on the Zoom meeting, it's a kind of company. So he's obviously a religious Jew, as a Yarmulke, and there's like a menorah, whatever it is in his background. And this Muhammad, one time they were in a private room, whatever, and they were talking. Said, I'm also Jewish, Muhammad, but his mother's Jewish. So he started talking about tefillin. The kids so he said, I'll put on tefillin. So he was the Jew lives in Israel. Muhammad lives in California. So he says, I'm supposed to be in California in 2-3 weeks, so I'll come and I'll get you tefillin. How much is it going to cost? $300. He just threw out. He came home and told Eisenbach, this is the shliach, Eisenbach the story. She said, what? 2 weeks right now? You have to put on tefillin. You agreed right now. So he had to track down the shliach. One of the kunins was a shliach in that city. And the kunin told him that it's unbelievable. I just recently got a large donation of tefillin sponsored, and 21 pairs of tefillin. I was able to give out 20 of them. 1 pair I didn't give out yet. How much does it cost? $300. So right away he went over to him and he put on tefillin with him, and so that's a similar story where the Chassidim, Shluchim understand this, that you right away chaparayim the mitzvah. I mean, that's a little bit of a different story because the guy was ready to do it, so he did it right away. But the general approach is, yes, you put on film with the person the first opportunity, unless you have a strong feeling that there's a reason to be concerned, there's a reason why you think he's going to say no. Or sometimes a person says no, so the way he says no, you realize that if you're going to push more, it'll probably be bad. But again, unless you have a strong reason to say no, I would say always chaparayim and just do the mitzvah immediately. Yeah.
Regarding the story that we said before, you missed a couple parts of the...
Thank you. It's so sweet of you. That's okay. Question: if I am behind in the minyan, do I say Ani Hashem Elokeichem 2 times? So to explain, when we say Kriya Shema, Kriya Shema has how many words altogether from Shema until Emes? From Shema until Emes, how many words are there? 245 words. And we have to add 3 words to get to 248, corresponding to the 248 limbs of the person. So how do you add the 3 words? So there is a minig out there, not Chabad minig, to say the words Keil Melech Nemon as an introduction. Or you say Yechia Melech HaMashiach. No, that's probably what you're supposed to say. But that's yes. Oh, we didn't have a yes here in a long time. I want some yeses. Hello, please. Make sure to give me some yeses. But that's another minute. But, from Allah Zayt, you stand in that corner. You're in that corner. No, you're not Yesh Racha, yes. And I say all together, Achash, Time, Shalosh. Yes? No? Okay. The kids are, so that our minig is not to say the Keil Melech Naman Ta'ad. Rather, we repeat at the end of Kriya Shema, we repeat 3 words. And this way we end up getting to 248. Which 3 words do you repeat? So if you're davening alone without a minyan, so then you say the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and you say again the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and then you say the word Emes. If you're with a minyan, so the Chazan says Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes, and he repeats the words Hashem Elokeichem Emes. And everybody else that's with the minyan does not repeat the words. Okay, so that's 3 minhagim now. If you're davening alone, you say the words Ani Hashem Elokeichem a second time. If you're davening with the minyan, so if you're the chazan, you say the words Hashem Elokeichem Emes twice. You say the first time quietly, the second time out loud. If you're davening with the minyan, you don't say it at all, and you only hear the chazan, and hearing the chazan repeat those 3 words is enough for you. So the question is, if you're behind the minyan, what do you do? So the answer is, it says in the Poskim say, if you got up to, you finished Habecher B'am Yisrael Ba'ava. What's the Lashon? Habecher Esamei. I'm getting old if you're getting how to daven. Boicher es Am Yisrael ba'ava. You sure? I can't trust anybody. Be'amish. Thank you. See, I mixed you up also. Chayto machti. Haboicher be'am Yisrael ba'ava. So if you finish the word ba'ava, and then the Chazan said Hashem Elokeichem Emes, so even though you didn't say Shema yet, it's enough to count for you that you are that those three words add to your 245 words, and you have 248, and you don't have to add anything else. So obviously, if you started Shema and weiter, it goes as well. But if you didn't finish the bracha yet, and the Chazan said it, then it does not combine with your Shema, and then you are going to have to repeat your Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Question: is it better to give a penny from your own money to tzedakah, or $1 from someone else's money? Okay, so I was thinking of this question. What does this mean? It means there's a poor man that's knocking on my door, and my father says, "Here, go give $1 to the poor man." And I tell my father, "Ta, keep your money," and instead I go take my own penny and give it to the poor man. No, in that case, it's better to give your father's dollar to the poor man and not to give your own penny. A second option, if there's a poor man knocking on the door and I have a penny, and I see my brother or my friend, whatever it is, I see his wallet, and I can just steal his dollar and give it to the poor man. No, in that case, do not take that person's dollar and give it to the poor man and give it this dollar. So those two questions wouldn't apply. The question would be in two stories. And one time, the guy knocked on the door. My father gave me $1 and I gave it to the poor man. And the other day, my father wasn't there, so I gave him my penny. So the shaila is, which is better in those? Which do I get a bigger schar? I get a bigger schar when I gave my own penny because it was my own money. I'm not sure which other option there can be, but these are in the scenarios that I thought about. To take from a tzedakah box and give to the poor man?
No, someone can give you $1. You don't give you $1 to give before Shacharis.
Someone's giving you $1 to give before Shacharis. He's giving it to me that it's mine. So once a person gives me $1 that it's mine, then it's my dollar. So I can give. Then it's not mine. He's making me a shliach mitzvah. He's making me a shliach that it's not mine. No, again, what is it better? Where do I get a bigger schar? If you made me a shliach to give $1 to tzedakah to him, is it better to give him a penny? No, you made me a shliach. That dollar belongs to tzedakah. I have to give it. There's no option differently.
What if he gives it to you and then he's just shoving a punch into your face?
So then he's telling me, he's giving me the schus to be but there's a milam being a shliach. If I appoint you as a shliach to give $1 to tzedakah, even though you don't get the reward of giving the tzedakah, but you're part of the mitzvah, you're supposed to do the mitzvah.
Not all people go around giving like quarters or whatever.
So they're giving so some of them give you the money with the intention it's yours. You can do what you want with it.
How do they have to say that it's yours?
It's kind of a given that when a guy's walking with a pushkin giving you a dime, he's making it yours to give to tzedakah. The Rebbe sometimes gave out pennies and he said, one is for the child to give to tzedakah, one is for the child for themselves to keep. The whole dollars, I don't know if people are aware, the whole giving out dollars of the Rebbe was the point of to give out to tzedakah. There's a part of Chabad Lubavitch, which most of you have never heard of, spoke about it a few times. It's something called Pidyon Delarim. I remember as a kid, you went by dollars by the Rebbe. As soon as you finished the line, there were a whole bunch of people with boxes, and they were saying Pidyon Delarim. The Rebbe just gave you $1. The Rebbe said this is $1 to give to tzedakah. So the Rebbe said the $1 or in exchange of the $1. So every person that got $1, after he walked out, he took his own $1 and gave it to tzedakah, and then he kept that $1 of the Rebbe. So that's the people don't realize that's the whole dollar's worth. So I remember coming out, picking the ladin. And I remember my father one time was so annoyed. He just took the dollar from the Rebbe and he put it into the person's box, and then the person was like, "Whoa, you're not supposed to do that," but whatever. My father, that's his way of doing things. But he has many dollars. But I remember one time with him doing it. I remember the guy's face, like I think it was Benji Stock, the Shimshin Stock, whatever, Shimshin Stock. I remember him he was like screaming at a loud, annoying voice, whatever. He didn't allow. So that was the thing. But B'derech Klal, so the Rebbe gave it to you with the intention of giving it to tzedakah, but the Rebbe understands that you're going to exchange that $1 for a different $1. So if you give, but the $1 is mine. The Rebbe, in that case, the $1 is not mine. The Rebbe is making me a shliach. But if you give me $1 for mine, you say you can either give it to tzedakah or not. Then yeah, it's my $1. It's better to give that $1 than give a penny because it's mine. Yeah. Whatever a prut is supposed to mean, whatever. That's a conversation. Yeah.
What if you see someone's wallet there, something like that, and you take $1 and you drop the wallet on you, and you drop it, you pay back in, and you don't have to trust.
Are you allowed to borrow someone's money to do a mitzvah with it on the intention of paying back? No, that's forbidden. You're not allowed to borrow someone's money without their permission. Yeah.
These aren't like money more.
They're even more valuable now because they're not making made anymore. Not faked, now they're a collector's item. They're a collector's item, so it's worth even more.
When the guy comes to stuff, it's better to give him
That's not true. College, I know some of you pennies. Today.
Yeah. Huh?
The total is like $1.01.
Again, I don't understand your question. If I know someone's okay with me borrowing his money without permission, I don't know. I still think it's forbidden. You can't borrow someone's money without their permission. Tefillin is different, that's a mitzvah. And you're not taking it away. But then you're taking his money, then you have to pay him back. You're not giving him back the tefillin as is. No, it's different. There's borrowing an item and borrowing money. It's not the same thing. By me, it's Pasha does it. Maybe I'm wrong.
I just checked the Pruta, it's 4.8 cents.
Pruta is 4.8 cents.
What if the guy has a good item?
What happens if
Let's just poor guy can't afford like a suit or something. They need to like a bunch of
a poor guy can't afford
surgery. They need to steal a bunch
surgery?
of the rich guy and give
Are you allowed to steal from the rich to give the poor? No. Your name is not Robin Hood. You cannot do that. That is forbidden. Huh? If his life's in danger, then you can take it, but you have to pay back that person. It depends on the situation. It depends. There are halachas. If I see somebody chasing after someone to kill somebody, and I can take an item and throw at that person and stop the murderer, so even though I'm going to break this item that I just threw right now, I'm allowed to do that because that's a sakonis mafashis. I can even kill the guy for that as well. So there are cases like that, but well, he's running after him with a dagger. So
maybe the other guy was just spraying after him in his family.
well, if I don't know, then I shouldn't. But sometimes it's pretty clear that there's an intention. You never know for sure, but sometimes you have a pretty good understanding of what's about to happen. Question: if we say that a person's music is a reflection of his soul, is there a problem of listening to a Jewish song that is a knockoff of a non-Jewish song? Meaning the melody, the chord progression, and accompaniment. What does that mean? Is exactly the same, but it just has different lyrics to the song. This question was asked to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said you have to ask a Rav. Not understand. My understanding is like this. My understanding is that even though in general we know that you can only elevate klipas noiga, you can't elevate klipas hatmeis. Things that are in the gray area, the power area could be elevated. But things that are treif cannot be elevated. So if something comes from a goyish person, a person that's not shemer Torah mitzvahs, completely maybe that's not a good example, but a goy, so it's coming from a place of klipa, so maybe that can't be elevated. It's not the same thing, mamish. So over here, l'chayra, my understanding is that Rebbe said to ask a Rav, and when a Rav paskins that you're allowed to, and the koyach of the Torah can elevate that. Now we do know that Rebbe brought a nigun from a not a Jewish source to Chabad. Which nigun? Deres Vamun. Napoleon's March that Rebbe didn't bring. That's from before. Napoleon's March is from before, from Napoleon, yeah. I don't know that. I don't think so. But I know, but the pastors, the Marseillaise, what's called the French national anthem, yeah. That is Vamuna. So that, the Rebbe is okay. The Rebbe is a tzaddik. The Rebbe is able to elevate the sparks in such places as well. But regular people can't. But the koyach of the Torah can. So my understanding is that when a tzaddik, when a Rav, a Torah paskins that you're allowed to, that koyach elevates it. But if you don't have that koyach of the Torah on your own, you're not strong enough to elevate it, then it should not be done. 1 second, yeah. Oh, they changed it afterwards, but the question is that if this music was Zalzain before, I don't know the history, but if Lepoil it was composed by a goy, and that music comes from a place of klipa, then how can we be using it? Yeah.
What if the original song is a clean song from an atheist?
I think the same idea. A song that comes from someone that his nefesh comes from his soul, and his soul is in a bad place. Whether it's klipa, whether it's avodah zarah or gilai arayis, or wherever it may be, then you shouldn't be connecting to that music.
I
Yeah.
think that I heard that like you're gonna give that power to free. You ever heard that?
The Rebbe gave that power to Avram Friel.
Is that true?
I don't believe that. I know that some of his songs come from Geisha songs, but what? None of his songs come from Geisha songs? I know for sure that some of not his songs, not those. For sure songs come from him. Songs that he put out, that he was the one that was on his album, they came from non-Geisha's place. What's it called? Daddy Dear? Daddy, Giant Shoulders, but that's not the same one. Okay, so good, that's fine. Fine. So I'm not such a mumcha. I just know the songs that he sings. Whatever. That's okay. Could be I'm wrong. Okay. Slicha. Mchilas Kleiteros. Yeah. Who? I can't hear you. I know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? On the same note, is it that bad if I listen to non-Jewish music and women singing? I have two family relatives. One of them had a tkufa that he was basically not religious. The other one wasn't not religious, but he had a very hard time in emotional health and mental health. And both of them said that what caused their yerida was non-Jewish music. And both of them said that was the whatever it is, the portal where from there they went to other places. Now, that's regarding non-Jewish music. So yes, it contaminates your soul and could chas v'shalom lead to bad places. Does that mean that every person listening to non-Jewish music becomes fry? Of course not. But it shows that it could contaminate the soul very much, and there could be a big issue. Regarding the woman singing, so assuming that a woman singing is also mamish, which we spoke about in the past, if it's also mamish, it's an aveira, and any aveira is very, very bad. Any aveira is the most terrible thing that can be. I know about that psak, but we're not talking about that. What? Because I don't think that Lubavitch Rabban and Paskin like that psak. And we spoke about it last week. I said it last week also. Which begadim do we need to check for shatnez? There seems not to be such a dogish on this mitzvah. And also which materials? I'm surprised to hear that there isn't a dogish on this mitzvah, but maybe it's because we don't have to check begadim that there's no chash. On our shirts, there's basically no chash of having wool and linen together. And on your pants, regular pants also not, and your undergarments also not. There are a certain type of socks. I think it's gold toe socks. There's a certain type of expensive sock that I heard is shatnez, but no bacher is spending that money on their socks. With the place where there is a real shash of shatnez is suit jackets. And I think every person that knows checks their suit jackets for shatnez. Now, what do you have to check? Any suit you should check. However, now I've heard many shatnez people speaking. We had the earlier in the year we had the podcast, and he spoke about that as well, about checking shatnez. Ruven Abenaim, remember that one? Ruven Abenaim. That's what I was told. I don't remember. But 1 second. So they always say you should check everything. However, the oldest shatnez laboratory in America is in Williamsburg, and they're only open for like 2-3 hours a day. They're very limited. You call a minute before, a minute after they're closed. But you call them in the right times. I've called them many, many times in the right times, and they always tell you. They ask me always, where is it made and what's the materials? And I tell them, and they always tell me, this is not a shaila, it's okay, and sometimes this you have to check. And they're very good about it. All the other places that I call, you have to check everything. You must check nothing. But these people are the oldest, they're doing it for the longest, I think they have the most experience, and of course, they say you don't have to check, so that's the main reason why I call them. But L'chapayil, I trust them, they're mumchim, and they're saying, and it makes sense, and you talk to people in the industry that are checking, they tell you that doesn't happen often that they find. And that from all the checkings that they do, but they don't find. But you always have to ask a shayla. So it's mainly in jackets and suits and pants, and you should, every time you buy a suit and a pants, you should always, if it's a chashuv, a suit and pants, you should check. Another thing that you have that has it always is the fur hats. What do they call the kuchmas? The fur hats that we wear in Postville in the winter, the ones that look like the Russian peasants. Those apparently have shatnez as well, or could have shatnez. So those also you have to look into. And another thing which has shatnez in most shuls is this baguette behind me. The pareiches, they say in many shuls, most pareiches are shatnez. So therefore, do not wear it as a cape. What? No one wears it, but then when the kids were playing by many shuls, kids play behind the paroichas, they say it could be an issue. For some odd reason, that's what I read, that it's often shatnez, but it's not machnish toys. It's not a begging. Yes, that's true. Unless they asked the Jewish seller if he did. I know that I bought my kapota from Primo, and I asked him was the check. So he said we checked the number of samples, but I can't tell you for sure. You want to check, you can check, and sometimes they'll do a service and they'll check it for you. Just because it's sold by a Jewish store does not mean that it's not an issue. Huh? What? Someone said something? Primo.
Just 100% of something that shows anything.
If what? No. If it, apparently not. Even if it says 100%, that's what he said on the podcast. Even if it says 100% of a certain material, which I don't think it's possible to do that, but even if it will say that, apparently the law allows to put in a small percent and not report it. And therefore, that doesn't mean anything, what they say. Huh? We had the whole podcast then, by taste and by touch and by burning. You can say it tastes different, yeah. They take the thread and they put it into their mouths and they see how it tastes on their mouth. Burning also, huh? It tastes like paint. It's a sensitivity that you pick up. It's a sensitivity that you pick up over time, and you learn how to do it. It's a good business. If OU said Coke is kosher without knowing the ingredients, then are we allowed to follow the hechsher? I never said that. I never said that OU doesn't know the ingredients. I assume that if OU gives a hechsher, they know the ingredients. What I said was that Rabbi Lando doesn't know the ingredients, and Rabbi Lando therefore doesn't give a hechsher. And Rabbi Lando feels that just because OU said he's a big machmir, and when he gives a hechsher for something, it's when he knows 100%, and hearing from someone else is not considered 100%. Well, the Rabbanim with OU apparently know it. I don't know if I can't tell you. I can't tell you the pratim. I don't know, but I believe that the OU would not give a hechsher without knowing. They're from a yidden. They're careful and cautious. Okay. So we have a grandson of one of the senior administrators of the OU, and he says that they don't know exactly, but they were given a list of ingredients, and they were told that it's one of these ingredients. They didn't want to keep the secret, and the OU looked at it and said, "Hey, Bazay, it's fine." But that's what Mr. OU says. I don't think the OU just looked at the list and walked away. Maybe they brought them into a room with all the ingredients. And I don't know. I trust the OU. I think they would do it. Well, how they did it, that he's saying a suggestion, what he heard from his grandfather probably. But I don't know. I trust them. Question: if someone is attracted to the opposite of females, is it a problem to listen to Koil Ish? So if a bacher has an issue with Mishkav Zacher, so is he allowed to listen to other bachrim singing? This is not a joke. This could be a serious question. So, Bechlal, if someone has such an attraction, it's obviously something which has to be spoken about. He has to speak to a mashpia, how to deal with it. There are no halachas for these things. For obvious reasons. However, there is a Gemara which says that some of the Tanoim, Amiroim, they told their Talmidim, do not let me be alone in a room with my daughter. They told their Talmidim, make sure I'm not alone with my daughter. There's no Isser of Yichud to be with your daughter. But they were saying, in my situation, I'm concerned to be with my daughter. So there's two things that they were trying to say. They were trying to say, you shouldn't be embarrassed about any taiva that you have, and just make sure the best to stay away from it. And they were also trying to say that if you know yourself in certain situations, then you shouldn't put yourself in that situation. So if you have such an issue, then you should make yourself a chumrah not to listen. There's a famous mashpia in Eretz Yisrael. I'm not going to say his name, but I'm going to copy him, so those that know will understand and appreciate it. That he brings a lot in different communities, and he doesn't take buses because it's pritzes. So he only takes taxis. They have to get him a taxi on the Fabring. So one day they brought him a taxi, and the taxi driver's wife was sitting in the front seat, and he was sitting in the taxi driver's driving. He didn't want to get into the car. So the driver realized what's going on. So he tells him, "Mashpia, Harav ze ishti. It's my wife. What's the big deal?" If you would have a Yitzhahara like me, you also wouldn't go in. He's a very famous mashpia, and I have a big argument with my kids about him. I say that he's crazy, and they say, but he's a tzaddik, and I say, true, he's a tzaddik, but he's crazy. He is crazy. He is crazy. He's crazy. He could be a tzaddik, but he is 100% crazy. And whoever says he's not crazy is also crazy. With all due respect to my children, he is crazy, but he's holy. And no, this story is not the reason why I call him crazy. He's crazy because if you meet him for 2 hours of talking to him, you'll have new reasons why to think so. He's a crazy person. Stop it. I hate when people say it. You give him the credit that he deserves, but don't take away what he doesn't have. He's crazy. Mushuga. If he was Fabring, I would sit now the whole night with him. But he's crazy. Why do we have to blow everyone in to make them perfect people? He's a crazy person. That he's holy. So what? The kids said Amaisa, back in Yoneinu. There was a bacher in Branwa, that I heard this from an older Jew. Today he's probably 70 years old. He told me that he was a bacher in Branwa. He had a friend of his that wrote him to the Rebbe that he has an issue with Mishkav Zachar, his Machshavas, whatever. So the Rebbe told him not to go to the mikveh. That was a specific instruction to that person, which, back to the question the Bacher is asking, I would say the same idea. You have to know yourself. You speak to a Mashpia about such an issue, you must speak to a Mashpia, and you have to discuss what could be done. And yes, sometimes you have to avoid Koil Ish or whatever it may be, then you have to avoid it. Yeah. Huh? You asked that same stupid question last time.
Was this your question?
Yeah. Okay. Next. Is mashke important in our avodah? And if not, I can speak to your father now, Mandy, because he listens. So I'm going to tell him. I was mentioning your name. Now your father's going to listen. He's going to hear that I'm talking to you. Mandy's father should know that he just disturbed. Okay. Is mashke important in our avodah? And if not, why do Chassidim drink it? In my humble opinion, mashke is not important in Avodas Hashem. Mashke is way overrated, and the reason why Hasidim used it is because, and this is not good to say, but not nice to say, but it's my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. Hasidim grew up in Russia, and there was a culture in Russia to drink and make yourself have a good time, and that seeped into Hasidim. In addition, Hasidim were tense, they were nervous the whole time, and mashke loosened them up, and therefore it became part of the Avodas Hashem, part of the derech of Chassidim, and it has a certain mila. There are a number of sikhs, not that there's no sikhs at all, there are a number of sikhs not praising mashke, but talking about mashke in a way that it's used by Fabrengens. But I think that the Chassidim that were most into mashke are usually Chassidim that had very rough lives. Until today, it's like that, by the way. Chassidim that drink a lot, often no one knows, but they have terrible shlem bias, they have issues with their family, whatever it is, and they come and they fabring and they drink and whatever, and everyone doesn't realize that it's a certain mashpim, they don't have any children. They drink and they bachrim love it, they're just shikarim. The guy comes home, he has no children, he says he's suffering, so what do you want him to do? Obviously he's going to drink. So people don't realize a lot of times where the drinking comes from. It's not, a derech in Chassidus doesn't have to be that way. It's fun. I mean, there were tkufas that I drank, and it's for sure it's a lot of fun. It's even more fun to watch somebody drink, but there's a certain mile in it, but it's not dark Chassidus. A little bit, a tiny little bit, just laman ha'inyan. Zudati. Yes. They have to hide it. What should they do? They have a hard time. I'm not judging anybody. What's the nebach? The guy is stuck. He has what we're supposed to do. So let him drink. Yeah, it's my opinion. I mean, I'm sure many people will disagree with me, but that's my Rabbi Yochanan, by the way, said the same thing. Rabbi Yochanan was this opinion as well. I mean, this I agree with. Question: does your davening count if you say the words while inhaling? Like you say, like that? I don't know, something along those words. I don't think there's an issue. Yeah, you can say it while you're inhaling, but as long as the words are audible, they come out of your mouth, I think it's not a problem. I don't think you have to somehow exhale while you're saying the words.
The point where it should not sound like a stretched curtain.
That's for other people, but mitzvah davening gets counted no matter what you're saying. Huh? No. Put that in the Q&A. No, ask in the Q&A if I would answer the question. Huh? I don't know exactly. So whatever. If the words come out, then they're kosher. What is the best sport besides for baseball? I don't know how you spell besides. B-I-S-I-E-O-S. Let me win. The best sport besides baseball is chess. Why not? How do you define a sport? By a ball? What? Well, then I have to rethink my answer. Okay. Why is Hasidus so unorganized? Meaning, in every part of Torah, it's explained what's wanted. Kabbalah, Sfira, Seder, Ishtalshalos, Musar, Midas, etc. How come Hasidus can't be similar? Also, between Ma'amadim, so many stirs. First of all, Chassidus is unorganized, and Mishnayos are organized. Learning Mishnayos, one Mishnah, Gemara is organized. Everything's jumping all over the place. Everything's going Me'inyan Le'inyan. Even the Rambam, as much as the Rambam is most Mesudar, oftentimes the Rambam, it doesn't make sense, the Seder, how he talks about things later. He references a certain subject, and then only like a few prakim later, Piskei Ardis, like a Kilayim, 5 prakim Ardis Mitamo. What's Ardis? Many times you have that. Akopanim, that's the Man Ha'inyan. But the answer is that this is, I think, the most important answer. First of all, the true answer is you have to learn what's called Kuntras and Yonos Shel Teiras HaChasidus, where the Rebbe explains at length what Chasidus is about. But the Nekud is, Chasidus is not coming to explain to you a certain Seder of something. Chasidus is a Gilui of Elikus. Chasidus is a revelation of godliness, and every mimer is a revelation of godliness in a certain inyan that's being explained right now. Every mimer Chasidus is not coming to teach you a new intellectual information. It's not coming to you a new gedank, a new word on the parsha, a new way of teaching a pasuk. Every mimer Chasidus is coming to teach you a likus, and that alikus is meant to affect your seichel and understanding, your midas and your feelings, and of course your peil mamish and your behavior. And therefore, Chasidus does it in the most perfect way possible. This that we like organized things, people like learning things in an organized fashion, that's mitzad our nefesh hasichlis likes organization. And that's why we have the Rebbe made Sefer HaErchim. Sefer HaErchim was for this purpose, encyclopedia, have things organized in an organized fashion, because the Rebbe understands that our Seichel appreciates that, so the Rebbe is taking care of us. But that's not what Chassidus is about. And of course, to understand in Yonim, you have to use your Seichel. But Chassidus is not here to explain, give you a nice, beautiful biur, a nice drosha. Chassidus is beautiful and nice droshes, but that's not what it's meant to be doing. It's meant to be explaining godliness. And why there's stiris between Ma'amadim, so many stiris, so just like in Taisvis and Gemara, there's so many stiris. Because Divrei Torah Aniyim b'mokim echad and Ashirim b'mokim acher. And when you learn a lot, you see more and more. There's not a contradiction. Like we like to say, if you have a house of 3 floors, and someone's talking about the first and second floor, so he's going to talk about the second floor, he's going to keep calling it the top floor. Someone else will be talking about the same house, and I'll talk about the second and the third floor. So I'll be calling the second floor the bottom floor. And someone that doesn't know, I don't understand, you're talking about the same floor, you're calling it the top floor, you're calling it the bottom floor. You see the big picture, you understand. But neither one of them were coming to teach you what the whole house looks like. He was talking about the first and second floor to bring out an Inyan. And he's talking about the second and the third floor to bring out an Inyan. So therefore, they came out there's a contradiction. But you learn more and more, you see how it all fits together. But it's the Inyan of learning Hasidus is not meant to be like that, to understand just a whole Seder Ishtalshalos. It's coming to Yelikus. And in certain ways, Chassidus can maybe even considered more organized than other places. Each mimer for itself could be organized, especially the Rebbe's Mukadik Ma'amarim, the Rebbe Rashab's Ma'amarim, and the other Svardim, you read Sifrei Pilpulim, they're also very often unorganized.